over the last year or two, we kind of learned a bit about ourselves and others. This has been different for us. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunity of hearing voices, seeing faces, getting the hugs, and reconnecting, because it's so important. You know, it's something that, as a byproduct of just living, we were used to. You know, we would be going out shopping and we'd run into a friend and catch up at the grocery store. You know, we're walking around the neighborhood and running into a neighbor and catching up on what the kids are doing. We were going out to dinner with friends, going into work and just chatting about what we did over the weekend, sharing some stories and some laughs. You know, even our extended family, large weddings. Like, these are some things that all of a sudden came to a screeching halt. And it was a little depressing. And I think probably a lot of us didn't realize how much it could affect us. For someone who is not an extrovert, I don't mind being alone. I get a lot of energy from myself. I like to clean a closet on a rainy day. But I found it was very disconcerting for me in feeling that disconnect. So it's been a crazy couple of years. So tonight I'm excited to be talking about 5 love languages, because that talks about connection and how important it is. So when COVID hit, we started working from home. Thank heavens for Zoom and video, right? Did a great job staying connected with Sisters U on Zoom. Working through Zoom if you were working from home, or I was doing some of those wine nights. You know, we'd get everybody on the Zoom and chat, you know, sitting in your kitchen. This is great. I don't even have to get dressed to go out. I can have friends over, have a glass of wine, getting the family involved. And I'm sure you guys can relate to this part of their head, my mother-in-law, or this part of the head, like, Mom, tilt it back, lean forward. All right, never mind. But just still connecting. And I was grateful for that opportunity. But I saw a meme about a year ago on Facebook, and it said, I decided to put on makeup and get dressed up to go to the living room tonight. And then I just figured, screw it, and I stayed in my pajamas, right? And I know that's how I felt, because the Zoom suddenly wasn't as fulfilling. We were seeing faces and we were hearing voices, but all of a sudden that became too much work, because I think we kind of rose to the occasion to do it. We can do this. You know, we can still get together. This isn't going to stop us. We're strong. But we kind of expected it to end a little sooner, didn't we? Yeah. And this is just temporary. And when it wasn't ending, I don't know about you, but I started cleaning a lot more closets. Got sucked into Netflix just a little bit, right? I mean, it was fun when we were just table dressing, you know, when we're on Zoom, pajama bottoms, nice outfit, having wine with the friends, and then it was not even happening with that, just kind of staying to ourselves. And what did that do to our psyche? It was depressing. It was difficult. And I think a lot of us went through a lot of different things during that time. So tonight, talking about love languages, and connecting and connection, and how it is intentional. It has to be intentional. We have to work on it, because just as we saw now, even backing off Zoom, how tough is it to table dress and turn on your computer, you know? But it's something that's so important and so necessary. So a couple of decades ago, we were doing brain studies. We were trying to learn a lot about Alzheimer's and dementia. And the offshoot of that is we learned a lot about brain development in young children. So infants, you know, up to toddlers. And just in a very basic description, we learned that through their environment, they're getting stimulated, right? Visually, auditorily, kinesthetically. That's how we're getting our information, and we're learning and we're growing and we're developing. But depending on how they were stimulated in those different senses, kind of determined their learning style, is what we found. And it is now necessary for us to really, truly understand our learning style so we can speak the same language as our children, right? My kids were young when we were reading about this, so I was pretty excited about it. And just as an example, if I was an auditory learning style, I'm going to be giving you all my instructions verbally. Go here, do this, turn right, turn left, whatever. And if I'm talking to someone who's visual, as the saying goes, in one ear and out the other. Not like they can't understand me and they don't understand me, but they miss a lot of it because I literally am speaking another language. And if I want to connect well with them, it's my job and my responsibility to make sure I understand what their language is, I know what my language is, and I don't use just my tools, but I use their tools as well. You guys heard the Thomas Edison story? He came home from school one day, he had a folded up note from his teacher, gave it to his mom, and he said, "Mom, teacher said to give this to you and only you." And she opened it up and she read it out loud to her son. She was crying when she was reading it to him, and it said, "Your son is a genius. We don't have enough teachers and the school is too small for us to teach him. You need to teach him at home." So obviously, Thomas Edison, there's a lot in history we know, he did very well. He was brilliant. His mother passed away, and years later, he was going through her stuff, and he found the note folded up, unfolded it, and the note said, "Your son is addled," which means mentally ill. "He can no longer come to school." And when you think about how little we knew back then, you know, if a child couldn't sit still, they were kinesthetic, or they couldn't hear auditory instructions, they couldn't maybe see what's on the blackboard and transfer it to their paper, they were not a good student. They were a troubled child. They were not going to learn. They were unteachable. And you think about how many geniuses we might have lost because we didn't understand that. So our responsibility to know they have different learning styles and we need to speak that language. So now comes Gary Chapman, and he says it's the same thing with our love languages. So if I'm speaking auditorily to a kinesthetic child, we're not bridging that gap. And he's talking about now we're adults. Now we want to do the same thing in our love language. You know, going back to learning styles with our children, get to tell another granddaughter story. I go to story time on Mondays, and I'm so fascinated with the people the librarians that are reading to the children. They're choosing a book with great illustrations, kind of sing-song and rhyme, so you know, it's got a rhythm of the words, and they're acting it out. All three learning styles. It's not the look at the book, you know. For all of us visual, that was fine, but not so much for the rest of us. So now we want to kind of figure out how we're going to do this in our relationships as well. So Gary Chapman, who's read the book? Who's done the book? You've done the studies? When was the last time you did
For me, it was a
long time ago.
So I don't even really remember much of it.
Yeah. We have the test tonight. There's going to be a test. Actually, I don't know if we'll have time for that, but we do have a test that'll help you kind of determine what your love language is. And then if you can get your significant other to take the test, see what their love language is, and start communicating. Or you know, you can kind of answer for them, right? Because you can know. You know what makes them happy, what makes them not happy, but you can pick up those clues. And if you haven't done it for a while, dust off the book, because things change for us. I can honestly say that probably my love language when I first got married is different than it is now. Things, you know, that make me happy are different than what it used to be. So one statistic that he put in his book that I found very interesting, he calls it the love high. You meet that one and only. You like the same food, you like the same movies. He listens to every word. He tells great stories. You do the same activities, and he is the one for life. This is going to be like this for the rest of my life. I'm so high on this. It was funny. My husband and I went away for an anniversary. It was 14 years at the time. And we met a newlywed couple. And, you know, they thought 14 might as well have been 65. What do you do? What's the secret? But we were chatting with them, and they were really sweet. But I'll never forget what this new groom said. He says, you know, I don't understand. What's the big deal? Everybody says, oh, it's so different. You get married, it all changes. It's been 3 days. I tried not to laugh, and we're like, oh, that's good. It's going to be different for you, but anyway. So the statistic that Gary Chapman says, love highs last on an average for 3 years. So I've been married for 31, so the other 28. Okay. you know, it takes work and it's effort. You know, things change, they shift in our responsibilities. We get a house, we have kids, you know, family, illness, job responsibilities. Is it that we stop doing what we used to do? Is we stop caring? Not so much. Maybe you were just speaking all the love languages because we were on that love high. And now it's time that we have to be intentional. So we're going to walk through the 5 love languages and kind of get an idea of how we can speak that same language. Does anybody know any of the languages?
Service.
Acts of service.
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation.
Physical touch.
Physical touch.
Quality time.
Quality time.
Go on.
Gifts.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the gifts. Yeah. So 5 different ways that people receive that information or that we can provide it. Do you feel like in those 5 you can kind of feel like you know what's important to you? Anybody? We were talking about some of this when we were answering the questions, and you were actually talking about writing cards, words of affirmation, acts of
touch
service.
And, words of affirmation are mine. I'm gonna have to go back though. Check that out again.
Acts of service for me.
Acts of service.
We were talking about how sometimes you show people you love them in the same way that, and that's how I show people I love them. I take care of them. I
Right.
do things for them. So, yeah, I think it would be great if my husband did that for me.
We'll bring that up later. That's a good point. So what I'm going to recommend, I'm going to go through these. I will recommend if you don't have the book, get the book, or I'm going to give you my email address. I do have the quiz here. If we do get a chance to go through it, we will. But I can email you the quiz and also some tips and notes on what to do after that. But just in reading some of these, so for example, physical touch. People who communicate their appreciation through this language feel appreciated when they're hugged, kissed, or cuddled. They value the feeling of warmth and comfort that comes from physical touch. Now, my husband and I, our kids grew up on the beach. We were on the beach every day. And this one beach that we sat, same place, every single day, this elderly couple came off the boardwalk. They each were carrying a chair, and they were holding hands. I'm not kidding you. If somebody told me they were 102, I would have believed you or believed them. They would walk from the boardwalk all the way down to the beach, and we would joke that they'd have to turn around and come back because the sun was setting by then, holding hands every single day. Every single day. And I remember, you know, we would look at each other and go, you think that'll be us in 30 years? You know, we managed the 14 or the 3 days, right? You think that'll be us? And in all honesty, I can say maybe at the beginning of our relationship, physical touch wasn't one of my love languages, but I know hands down right now, if I'm walking with my husband, we do a lot of walks. If we're not holding hands, I feel like we might as well not even be walking together. There's something about that connection. I feel like we're relating, whether or not we're talking. And we can be talking about anything or laughing, but if we're not physically connected, that bridge might not be gapped for me. Can anybody relate to that? What are other ways that you can kind of express, well, with physical touch, I can say too, with the child who is kinesthetic, and you're saying, I love you, or great job. Again, in one ear, out the other, but a hug for I love you, a pat on the back, you know, that expresses what you're trying to express to them. Does anybody here feel like this might be their love language? The physical connection? It'll start popping up when you start hearing some of the things like, yeah, that's what makes me feel good. Acts of service. If your love language is acts of service, you value when your partner goes out of their way to make your life easier, right? It's things like bringing you soup when you're sick, making your coffee for you in the morning, picking up your dry cleaning for you when you've had a busy day at work. This love language is for people who believe actions speak louder than words. Anybody relate to that one? We got one.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, I think, like, for me, it depends on who the relationship is. Like, for my parents, I'm doing acts of service.
Okay.
But for like my husband and my kids, it might be more the physical thing.
How you feel connected to them. And Gary Chapman does do books on all different types of relationships. This one here is really about our significant other, but he does them for coworkers, and he does he do family members too?
Teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers, yeah. So that can be the way that you're connecting with them on that different level, absolutely. So what else can we do that's an act of service?
My husband went to the grocery store while I was here tonight because I needed something I forgot. So, yeah, it's just the little things. Don't you think that maybe we move through those 5 love languages all the time, depending on what's happening? And
I think we definitely shift.
yeah,
I think we feel, and you'll see with the questionnaire that we go through, I think we do feel that connection pretty consistently with some things that they do or don't do. I think we do move and it does shift, and that's something we should be aware of. I do know, for example, acts of service is a big one for me and has been all the time. If I feel like I have so much on my plate, getting coffee brought to me in the morning, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Or running errands like that, just making it easier. Because in my eyes, I believe they see how much we have going on and they appreciate all that we do. So they're trying to relieve us of some of that by an acts of service. Quality time is another one. People whose love language is quality time feel the most adored when their partner actively wants to spend time with them and is always down to hanging out. They particularly love when active listening, eye contact, and full presence are prioritized hallmarks in their relationship. Quality time. Sitting and watching a movie, maybe going on that walk. But what's the biggest thing? Eye contact, being present. You know, if they're unloading in a story, you're not doing the dishes or, you know, spending that time and really connecting. So what I wanted to mention was what I found early in my marriage, which is a little humorous. My husband, hands down, quality time. And I was hands down acts of service. So while I was running around the house doing everything, trying to show him how I was caring for him, and he was sitting there waiting for me to stop. And I'm thinking, get up and help. And he's thinking, sit down and be with me, right? 2 different languages, completely different languages. And we weren't getting it until we got into the study. And we're like, okay, that makes a little sense now. And it is just a way that we can make that mental shift. And I knew if I had something I needed to do, the best thing that I could do and express to him was, you know what, I want to hear about that story. Let me finish this, and then I'm going to come sit with you. And then we'd have that time together. And it'd be even better if he said, I'm going to get up and help you finish that so we can sit down quicker, right? Again, speaking that same language. Words of affirmation. People with words of affirmation as a love language value verbal acknowledgement of affection, including frequent I love yous, compliments, words of appreciation, verbal encouragement, and often the digital communication or letters, things like that. Words of affirmation. You look really good. That dinner was amazing. Oh my gosh, last night when you told that story, that was hysterical. You really have a way with people. Everyone enjoyed themselves. Encouragement, affirming with them what they're doing well, what you notice and what they do well. And even just appreciation. Thank you so much for taking the trash out last night. You know, even things that they would typically do, but recognizing to them that they're doing it and how much you appreciate it. And the encouragement of, you've got this. You know, I know you have a tough decision to make, but you've done this before and you're gonna do a great job. I know we can all think of a lot of words of affirmation, so what are some? Just shout them out.
I'm just thinking, I think I'm a really bad wife. That's what I'm thinking. Should I be saying all these things?
If his love language, but if it's not something that he's looking for, I
Yeah, I don't know. He probably would appreciate it. Sorry.
that'll be your homework. What are things that we can say that show our support?
Thank you.
Thank you. For so much, right? Thank you. We can say thank you for so many things. What else?
How can I help you? What do you need me to do?
Right, knowing that, letting them know that you're there for them and that it's important. Do we compliment them on the way that they look?
Yeah. so
What
it's
they
like
do?
complimenting- It's something that might seemingly be so simple, just giving it that little extra, you know, it might just be an everyday thing. Just to let you know that you appreciate them, like
Yep.
compliment kind of a thing, yeah.
And sometimes, you know, when we look at these 5 love languages and we're trying to express them, we might have to recognize that, for example, quality time. Things that they like to do that maybe we don't typically want to put in our day-to-day is a huge quality time. It's on camera. I'm hoping he's not watching, but I will say I have to learn how to golf. So I will be looking for golf lessons because I know how much he loves that. Hands down, can't say that it's something that I want to put on my to-do list. However, I know how much that'll do for us and how much he'll appreciate that, and we'll get that time together.
Cool.
Yeah. So quality time, again, thinking about what they like. Words of affirmation, encouraging, thanking them. The physical touch, oh my gosh, just holding hands, sitting there, shoulders touching. He's telling a story, putting your hand on his back, letting them feel that presence that you're there. Quality time, eye-to-eye contact. Put the phone down. Anybody have that, whatever you wear on your wrist? I got to tell you, when I'm talking to somebody and they're going like this all the time, I'm just feeling like they're thinking, when is she ever going to shut up? But I know they're checking their messages, right? And that's not making me feel like they're necessarily connecting with me. So we want to make sure that's something that we do. So that is a really quick review of the 5 love languages, and I think we have time if we want to do the test. Did you give me all the copies?
I gave them all to you.
All to me. So what we have here is 30 combinations, statements. There's pairs of statements, and you're going to pick one of the 2 that relates most to you. And you really should spend some time doing this. I will email you another copy. If you want, my email address is my name, Terri, Terri, and then the initials JMT @gmail. I'll email you a copy of this. You can print it out, have your significant other take the test as well. But a love language to some people really is about gifts. And I do have people in my life that I know for a fact it is very important to them. And it's a pretty straightforward love language. You feel loved when someone gives you a visual symbol of love. And it's not about the monetary value, but the symbolic thought behind it. People with this style recognize and value the gift-giving process, the careful reflection, and the deliberate choosing of the object to represent the relationship, which is something I think is really important to notice, because when you're giving a gift to someone with that love language, they want to know that you recognize something that's really important to them. You could pick out a gift that you think is cute or you think they would love or it would be good for them. And if it's really not of interest to them, they feel like there's a disconnect. So if you're not a shopper, Gary Chapman actually even mentions maybe get a professional shopper to help you. Or ask around, what do you think, would be a good idea. So we're going to find out a little bit about each other. Who is words of affirmation?
Is it your
Words-
top 2 or 1?
The highest score.
What if you have a tie?
Well, if it's one of them, if it's one of your love language, words of affirmation. So words of affirmation, and reading some of these statements, what are things that you hear that make you feel really good and loved? What are words of affirmation you can honestly say that you get from your significant other that matter?
Like, I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you. That one hits me too. It just goes to my toes. I'm words of affirmation also.
Oh, I don't, but I like it.
Oh, is it?
Stolen words of affirmation.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
Yeah, acknowledgement of,
Acknowledgement of something you've done,
or, yeah, who I am.
who you
or-
are.
Yeah. That I got my hair cut.
Just noticing that. That's always good.
As long as it was positively noticed.
Or you actually got a cut. That would be helpful too.
Not the day before your appointment. That always makes me, it looks great. I'm like, tomorrow.
Anything else for words of affirmation that we hear?
Appreciate you. I appreciate you. Whatever.
Yeah.
Being a good mom and
Being a good, complimenting you and,
wife.
yeah,
I noticed, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody for quality time? I knew that about you, Sue. I just knew that.
Because of the 5 million pictures of my husband and I.
That, you know, you're very content and you're always walking and doing that together, that quality time. You can see that it matters. So what are some things in quality time that you recognize when your significant other does with you, for you? What pops out in your head like, man, I love when this happens? What?
I like when we do little projects together.
Projects, you're working together on something. You feel like you have his attention.
Yeah. And he does it even when he doesn't want to do it.
Yes, especially when they're doing something that they don't like to
I really
do,
wanna
like
that.
taking golf lessons. Anything else? Quality time that you can think of that when it happens, that's when you feel it.
I'll often book like an overnight or two for like a weekend getaway. And then when he's all about it, he loves it. He's like, this is my favorite thing to do. I'm like,
Aw,
that's great, because
yeah.
it's my number one. So, but we both really enjoy it, and it's so hard to get that quality time when you are at home. Kids are no kids,
Exactly.
work, anything. Even though you're there, and the other thing is the phones. It's like you never really have someone's full attention unless the watch, the phone, all that,
Yeah.
until it's put away. It's really hard. We're both guilty as charged, my husband and I, with that. So.
And you can challenge each other for that,
Oh, we
you know,
do.
turning it off.
When we
And
go away for the weekend,
Yeah.
just put it in the bag. I don't want to see it.
that is so
That's
great.
really good.
That is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, physical touch.
That was my other one.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sad.
So just the pat on the back or the holding?
Hugs me, but I ask him for hugs
Okay.
all the time. And
'Cause
he's
you
like,
need to
"Girl, I'm
feel
gonna
that."
go off. I want hugs." I was telling Colleen, like, I grew up in a really Italian family, and we're
There you go.
very outwardly, like, affectionate, and my brother-in-law used to call us the huggers. So, like, yeah, and my husband he didn't grow up like that, but he's become one of us. but my kids are really like that. So it's yeah, like it's funny, and don't tell Nick Shalou, but for a long time I'm a terrible insomniac, but a lot of times I'll fall asleep in front of the TV because I don't sleep well at night, and my kids would be upstairs and I'd hear like this 7-year-old Ryan being like, "Mom, you didn't talk me in."
Aw.
I'd be like, "Okay, I'm coming."
The physical connection. And you know what, that kind of covers the question we had with the focus, whether it's cultural or not. And I think growing up like that, it's how love was expressed to you, so that's how you expressed it. And I believe that's why I shifted too. I was never a hugger. Then I married an Irish Catholic and with 82 relatives,
Yeah.
so I learned to hug pretty quick. So it can shift, but yeah, I think that's something it's kind of learned, and how you received it or learned to receive it when you're little, you start to give it or know that as your language. Okay, gifts. I don't think we have any gifts here, right? We were all laughing. Yeah, 0, 0, 0. Anybody get a gift for one of their answers? I got one.
Yeah, I have two.
Two.
Yeah. But that's just because I like that option better than the other one.
Right. But not necessarily something that is expressing their love for us for that. Words of affirmation, gifts, quality time, acts of service, and did I miss one?
Acts of service.
Acts of service, okay.
That was me.
Acts of service. Okay. So things that you get excited, like we were saying, taking it off your list. You had talked about that before.
I joke with my husband a lot. I said, you know what really turns me on? It's like when you clean. It's really hot.
Man, if you just mow that lawn, I'm yours, right?
I mean,
Wash that car.
The house, but yeah, I'll take what I can get.
Very true. Nothing sexier than a man with a vacuum in his hands, right?
As long as it's not the gift.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
No, actually, I lied because one year I got the robot vacuum. I
Okay.
was very happy.
All right,
Alicia
all
just
right.
got that this past year. She was not happy because 90% of her house is hardwood.
It works on hardware too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the one, I don't know if it was the one she got was meant for carpet, but she's like, I trip over it and it annoys me and annoys me some more.
All right, vacuum, not a gift.
Yes.
So acts of service. So what are some things that you?
picking up coffee at Dunkin' Donuts for me when he's driving home,
Yeah.
or taking the dog out at night so I don't have to go out in the dark. You know, my husband does a lot of acts of service for me. Very lucky. Unfortunately, I don't know that I reciprocate that much.
Well, it might not be his love language, right? And again, it's a choice. Gary Chapman says love is a choice, and it needs to be intentional. We need to understand. And even if you're not going to get your spouse to sit down and answer these questions, there's ways that you can, communicate or see when is it that he is happiest, or, really you feel that connection. What is it that you're doing? And send me that email. I'll send you this quiz again, and I'll send you a list of things that you can do through journaling and understanding. I mean, for example, words of affirmation. That might not be your love language. And for some people, it'll be like, I got to tell them that they're great at something that they should be doing anyway. Like, that can be frustrating, right? So in this book, it actually says, you write down daily, try to think of words of affirmation that you want to confirm what they do well. Now, words of affirmation is my love language, so I constantly feel like I want to say thank you. And when I thank him for taking out the garbage, he does say, why are you thanking me for taking out the garbage? But that's because it's my love language. But it's not yours, so it's not going to come naturally. So journaling, what am I saying to them today about what I appreciate, what they did well, what they're going to do well? Make sure you don't repeat yourself. This is really a journey that you can take. And just
I was just going to say, I think it's funny because my husband will thank me for silly things. I'm like, why are you thanking me? Like, to me, that's stupid. But what I was thinking is, what if their love language is something that you're not comfortable with? Like, maybe I'm not good at giving words of affirmation, but that's his love language.
so you
That's
learn, right?
difficult. Yeah, well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. For people,
But it is complicated.
Yeah.
Because,
It is
could
work.
be any one of those things.
Yeah.
That the other person might not be comfortable with physical touch, maybe, and that's your spouse's love language. So I guess it comes down to compromise.
being aware, and when you're thinking about, forcing a child to learn with your language, and they're not going to fare well, or there's going to be that disconnect. It's the same thing in our relationship. If we just expect them to learn our love language, but we're not going to learn theirs, that's not a compromise, but it's not intentional development and growth. And I think we can become comfortable with all these love languages. Probably none of us are really into the gift thing, but if we were married to someone who liked the gifts, we would learn how, right? Because it's that important. But words of affirmation, journaling, what can I say to him that I do appreciate? What do I appreciate about him? What did he do today? What was I so amazed that he did yesterday? What do I know he's capable of? And journaling them and just challenging yourself to say them once a day. They have to be something that does come natural to you. So, this made me think of this joke. Bear with me.
Funny, apparently.
This husband went in for counseling because he was having a difficult time with his wife, and the counselor said to him, there are words of affirmation you really do want to share with your wife to let her know that you appreciate her. And two of the things that we don't do enough is, apologize, and also, share that we love them. So I'm going to challenge you to every day, say I love you and apologize for something. 2 weeks later, he met with the counselor, and the counselor said, how's it going? He goes, well, she left me. He goes, did you do the exercise? He goes, yeah. And I just knew I would forget, so I decided every night before I go to bed, I would say, I'm sorry, I love you. So it has to be done the correct way. So if it's not comfortable for you, make sure you don't do it like that. But journaling through it and deciding what can I do to express and see what makes a difference. The neat thing with the 5 Love Language book, he really talks about couples that worked through these different love languages and how it shifted the relationship, and sometimes shifted it in a very short amount of time because it was just such a big difference. It was just what the spouse needed, whether it be what we need or what he needs. It's worthwhile. especially now that we really kind of get a better understanding of how important it is to connect. And I didn't speak up with my grateful before, but I am just grateful for this group, because us getting together and being able to just share things like this and be open and vulnerable is very important to me. And I really appreciate you guys very much. But that's it.